Hey guys, it's Caroline. I'm back again. It's been a while. I said to myself, I will wait until I get 20 subscribers and then I'll post my next video. And I've got 23, which is amazing, which means there's 23 people that I can reach out to and tell my story to and be able to connect with them. And that's really the reason why I'm doing this. Now, as you can see, you know, this is the real, like, you're not going to get any, like, makeup and whatever. This is me. This is, I've put on some weight. I've got, like, pimples up because I've started treatment and it's affected me quite a bit. So, it's affecting my health. So, anyway, I left off with ending my stillbirth story and I now want to go into the next phase of my traumatic story. So I ended explaining to you guys that the doctor said, right, had my hysterectomy laparoscopy surgery, you can get pregnant. I went straight to my amazing Chinese doctor acupuncturist who got me pregnant straight away with Michael, and she said to me, you've been through so much, you're not ready to get pregnant. I'm going to give you these herbs and do this treatment just to help your body recover from everything that you've been through. Well, I was so obsessed with getting pregnant. I had so much grief. I had so much anger. It was such a difficult time for me that I didn't listen, of course, and I tried anyway, and I got pregnant straight away. Within 2 weeks of the surgery, I was pregnant, and everyone was shocked. Even my lovely Chinese doctor was shocked. So when we found out I was pregnant, she said, look, I want you to come and see me every week. I'm going to look after you through this pregnancy and make sure that everything's okay. I also sought a very well-known fertility naturopath in my area, and she asked for my blood test results, and she said, has your obstetrician talked to you about this? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, you've got blood clotting disorders. And I was like, what did you just say? Blood clotting disorder? I was like, why did my obstetrician not tell me this in my final appointment with him? So because I got pregnant again so quickly, I contacted him straight away and I said, look, I'm pregnant. I need to work out who I'm going to see. And also, why didn't you not tell me about these blood test results? And he turned and he said, Caroline, I'm so sorry. I'm going to cop that on the chin. You're right. I stuffed up. And I said, well, I can't trust you anymore. The trust is gone. And he said, look, yep, I agree. The trust isn't there. The trust isn't there. I advise you speak to your GP and see a new obstetrician. And so I did. And then it began the roller coaster of just bad things happening. I had an extremely difficult pregnancy. I was doing acupuncture on a weekly basis, which is going fine. I originally took, I went and saw a hematologist for the blood clotting disorders, and I took Clotting, had an extremely bad reaction to it. I had a very chronic migraine. I could barely lift my head. And I spent, the first 20 weeks of my pregnancy, it was just the migraine. And I actually went to hospital and it was so bad. They made me wait 24 hours in emergency. And then I finally had an MRI. And I was so scared to have the MRI because I thought, well, this is going to make me miscarry. And fortunately, there wasn't a bleed on my brain, which is what they thought potentially it could be. So then the hematologist said, well, you better take something, take aspirin. The fertility naturopath also gave me a whole bunch of supplements to take as well to support me during pregnancy. And, my obstetrician was just treating me like a normal pregnancy. And I was extremely sort of angry and frustrated throughout the whole time. I'd go to appointments with like 2 pages of notes and questions. And I'd ask him and say, how do you treat this pregnancy? High risk, normal? And he's like, it's normal. And I'm like, the truth was, there was nothing wrong with my child. We didn't really have any complications during the pregnancy. The problem was at the end. So we got to the end of the pregnancy It was about 38 weeks, and my obstetrician was on holidays when I was about 36, 37 weeks pregnant. And he says to us, I need you to be induced at 38 weeks, Caroline, because you've got these blood clotting disorders. And the only date that is suitable is on the first year anniversary of your son's death. So Michael died, he was born, we didn't die, but he was born on the 18th of July, 2012. So I was to be induced on the night of the 18th of July, 2013. As you can imagine, everything went wrong. Walked into the hospital with an extremely heavy heart. I was induced. The appointment that you're meant to have before you're induced, it was like the universe was working against me for some reason, and my husband forgot my daughter's seat in the car, so I couldn't get to the appointment, and for some reason they refused to fit me in to see the obstetrician before the induction. So we never had that final meeting to like check the size of the baby and work out exactly what we're doing, because we sort of had said that, yes, we're going to do an induction. I was so, obviously I was very like natural birth, anti-C-section, etc., because I'd had natural birth with my daughter. But my daughter was 6 pounds 3 ounces with a 32 centimetre head. She was tiny. So I was induced, and I laboured for about 14 hours. I did pretty well, progressed, got to about 7 centimetres dilated, and then I got stuck. And for some reason, wasn't dilating any further. The baby seemed to be stuck. He was posterior, and the obstetrician said, right, have an epidural. And so the anaesthetist came down with the epidural, and it's completely stuffed up. He started yelling at, because I was in so much pain, I was screaming, and he was yelling at me saying I needed to be quiet so he could concentrate. And he said, you need to curve your back. And he just was like, it was crazy. And he went in 3 times, and then it didn't work. And the obstetrician comes down, and at that point I was like, I didn't care. I was like, look, after everything I'd been through, I just wanted this baby to come out alive. I didn't care about me. So I said to the obstetrician, what is the safest thing to do for the baby? And he said, emergency C-section. I said, right, let's do it. So went down to theatre, and the anaesthetist down there said, well, look, I'm sorry, I can't give you a spinal block, an epidural, because you already had an epidural and you could have spinal damage. You could be completely stuffed up because it didn't work. So we need to put you under. So I had to have general anaesthetic. Now you can imagine the trauma that I went through with the stillbirth, and then on top of that, to have an extremely traumatic pregnancy. I had to change obstetricians, change hospitals. I had a really difficult time. I was stressed the whole time. And then to add salt to the wound, I'm not even going to be conscious when my son comes into the world. And at that point in time, I was in so much pain, I didn't care. I was yelling at them to give me that anaesthetic. I just wanted to be knocked out. So I was knocked out. And I can't tell you what happened after that. I've got pictures. Sorry. That's all I got. I just got pictures. I don't know. All the dreams and the hopes that I had. I was so looking forward to breastfeeding Michael and holding him for the first time after he was born. And I didn't get that. I was robbed of that. He was taken from me at 22 weeks. And then to get a second chance of having another baby, and then to be robbed again of having the birth that I wanted, and having the natural birth, and, having the whole, women, mums out there that have had natural births, you know what it's like. It's such an amazing, special thing, and no, I didn't get that. I wasn't awake. I woke up in a hospital bed, hooked up to a drip with painkillers, and I'm like in so much pain, and I wake up and I see my husband sitting there with my son. And so at that time, I had no clue what was ahead of me, what was coming up. But what was coming up was probably the most traumatic thing I've ever been through in my entire life. Sorry, I didn't mean to cry. It's all really traumatic and really hard. So, I spent a couple of days in the hospital. The midwives weren't that great. I was breastfeeding. I was in pain. I had a lot of back pain. I was really concerned about the whole, the epidural stuffing up and the potential spinal damage that could be there. That was playing on my mind. And, it's quite routine during after a C-section for recovery to give you, Voltaren. It's anti-inflammatory. So, after I came home from the hospital, I wasn't feeling very well. And I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And I was taking, endone, but then I was concerned about taking the endone because I knew it was affecting my baby. And I was breastfeeding and it was all about the baby. And I didn't want anything to happen to him. I was so scared. And so, my naturopath was saying, well, the Voltaren's okay. You can take the Voltaren. That's not going to affect the baby. So my mother went to get me the Voltaren, and the pharmacist was like, listen, you don't want to give this to your wife. It's dangerous. It can cause real issues. Like, it's caused, gastric bleeding potentially, all that sort of stuff. Of course, I completely ignored it because I trust my naturopath, and I thought, well, it's safe. I'm going to take it. It'll be fine. So I just kept downing them like they were like candy. And then a few days later, I started feeling really sick, like not hungry. And, then basically I was like, I remember it was probably about, I don't know if it was in the afternoon, and I remember going out to my husband and just saying, I don't feel well. And I went to vomit and my entire upper body froze up. And I said, call the ambulance, something is wrong. And so the ambulance came and they rushed me to the emergency room hospital. And they did a whole barrage of tests. I could barely breathe. I was in agony for a whole, at least 2-4 hours. They kept pumping me with painkillers and everything. And it was the worst thing I'd ever been through, I'd ever experienced. And they did all these tests and they said, we cannot find anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Call social services. It's like a psychological problem in your head. Go home. They sent me home. Well, a few days later, I think it was about 5 a.m, I woke up and I yelled to my husband, I don't feel well. And I went to the toilet and I vomited up blood. Yeah. And there began my experience with death. Well, dicing with death, I guess, or I call my life-death experience. So called the ambulance, went into emergency, and I'm going to cut a long story short. Basically, what had happened was the Voltaren and I guess also the aspirin that I took during pregnancy caused 2 bleeding duodenum ulcers. I ended up internally bleeding for 6 weeks intermittently. So what would happen is I'd go into hospital for about 10 days. They'd put me on no food, no drink. They'd put me on a drip and acids to treat the ulcer. I remember when I had my first scope, when I came out, the specialist comes up to me and says, you are very, very lucky. I was 1 centimetre off a perforated bowel. 1 centimetre off. So basically, yeah, I'd go in and then they'd send me home. And 24 hours later, I'd vomit up blood again. And, it wasn't just coming out from this end, it was coming out from the other end too. It was, I was shitting blood. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, it just felt really surreal. I was like, this is bad. This is life or death. I was in the high risk ward. Like, it was really bad. Like, I knew this was bad. But remember how I told you guys I'm a really spiritual person? I knew I wasn't going to die. I can't explain it. But basically, I was told during Henry's pregnancy, my son, they told me that I was going to suffer a lot. He was going to be fine, but something bad was going to happen to me and I was going to suffer. And, oh yeah, I suffered. Basically, that happened to me 5 times. 2 times, I vomited up so much blood, my hemoglobin dropped to 51. I lost more than 3/4 of my blood. That's pretty much coma state. That's death. There's not enough oxygen or blood to go around to your body to support your organs. Do not ask me how I survived. Obviously, yes, it's a miracle. Yes, I believe that I have a purpose here. I've got a story to tell, and I'm going to do something powerful with that. I don't know what it is yet. It hasn't come to light yet. I'm still on the journey of healing. But I believe once this chapter is over, then my next chapter is going to be pretty much my whole purpose here on earth, and what I'm meant to really be doing here on earth. So yeah, I'd go hospital, go in, come home, vomit up blood within 12 hours, call the ambulance and go back in. Exactly the same thing would happen. 6 days, 8 days, I'd be in there, they'd send me home, I'd vomit up blood again, go back in. This happened 5 times. And they'd never had anyone. They'd never ever had a patient before, ever, that kept internally bleeding for this long and survived for 6 weeks. They just couldn't believe it. They couldn't work it out. And I remember towards the end, I turned to my parents and I said, I'm going to die in this hospital if they don't work this out. And I never forget. So it was 6 weeks in. It was very early in the morning. And I didn't vomit up blood, but I felt very woozy. And we called the ambulance because I got a feeling I was internally bleeding again. And I remember lying in emergency. And by then, like, my veins were really small anyway. I had basically scars all down my arms because I'd been pricked so many times. I even had a pick line in, everything. It was really bad. And the intern comes into the hospital and goes to get my blood. And I said to him, don't even bother because you're just going to hurt me and you're not going to get the blood. And he said, all right. So then he spoke to his boss. The boss comes over and goes like this and goes, what are you doing in this hospital and what do you want from us? And I said, well, actually, I've got 2 bleeding duodenal ulcers and I think I'm internally bleeding and that's why I'm here. And he went, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's a very valid reason why you're here and I can completely understand. And so he wasn't even successful in taking my blood. And they had to call an anaesthetist down to take my blood. That's how bad my veins were. And then he comes to me and he says, we've got your blood test results. You're right. You are internally bleeding. Your hemoglobin's 81. I said, right, call my specialist straight away. I've got to get a scope done straight away. And I remember they came for me quickly and they got all the top specialists in the room. I said, you call everyone. I said, I've had enough. This is it. And I prayed to God and I prayed so hard. And I said, please, God. I said, I've had enough. I said, if you want me to die at this hospital, I'll die. I'm happy. Take me. If not, please, God, show them where the bleed is. I beg you, show them. Show them where the bleed is. I prayed so hard. And they put me under, and I was told there was a nurse in the room at the time, and she said to me, you should have seen it. They saw it was the posterior duodenal artery. It's a main artery for the duodenum. It popped out of one of the ulcers and gushed out blood, and they completely freaked out. And they went to stop the bleeding, and then I remember waking up, and there was a lady putting a pick line in my neck because, my arms were all gone and dead, and they rushed me to theatre to have an embolism. I have 20 plus coils in my artery. I also had a lot of blood transfusions in hospital. If it wasn't for the blood transfusions, I would not be alive right now. That's for sure. But of course, with blood transfusions, there's risks. You don't know what's in that blood. They test for the main things, but they don't test for Lyme disease. or for all those other bloodborne infections. I mean, you know, it's just, and keep in mind when all this was happening, I had a 2-week-old baby at home. I missed the first 8 weeks of my baby's life. And I could not breastfeed my baby. That was all taken away from me. And the truth of the matter is, I haven't been the same since. I haven't. I've been battling ever since I left the hospital, surviving. I remember going to the top gastroenterologist in the country, and he has a year waiting list, but somehow I connected with his daughter online and she got me in straight away. And he looked at my hospital records and he said, "You are a dead woman walking. Do you realize how lucky you are to be sitting in front of me right now and talking to me?" At the time, I didn't. At the time, I was still a bit in shock. I couldn't, you know, now I get it. Now I comprehend what happened to me. And, you know, I've had people say what happened to me was criminal, absolute criminal, like negligence, especially in the hospitals, like from the stillbirth to, you know, the fact that I internally bled for 6 weeks and they couldn't work it out. I mean, I don't know what to say, but all I know is I survived and I'm here. And I've come a long way. And obviously there's a lot more to this story, but I'm going to stop now because it's been 21 minutes and 22 minutes and I've been crying a lot. So sorry. I know I look really horrible and you know all the spots on my face, but this is me. This is the truth. This is real life. And I just want to reach out to everyone. And, you know, if you want to follow my story, and please subscribe and please leave a comment below if you have any questions. And thank you so much for watching. And I really am so grateful that I'm able to connect with you guys on YouTube. And bye for now.